Hello and welcome back. In this episode, Matt is going to give us an overview on how to use the Postsharp framework to perform Aspect-Orientated Programming, or AOP. He will start off by showing us how we can install Postsharp using NuGet. He'll then take a look at how we can create our first aspect and use the various arguments provided to each aspect method call to provide real value within our application. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hello, I'm Matthew D. Groves. In this Dimecast, I'm going to take you through a very basic Hello World style example to show you the basics of Aspect-Oriented Programming, or AOP. First, I'm going to start with a new empty console project. I'm going to be using a tool called Postsharp. So I'm going to go to NuGet here and find Postsharp and install that. It's going to start putting files in our solution. At the time of this recording, Postsharp 2.1 is still a preview release. It's CTP 3, but it is available on NuGet. And you can also use the NuGet commands in PowerShell if you'd like. So it's added a DLL file as a reference to our project, but if we look in the packages folder, we can see that in the Postsharp 2.1 there's a tools folder, which, among other things, contains an executable file. This is the Postsharp post compiler, which will take over from the C# compiler and actually apply the aspect code. More on that in a later Dimecast. Just know that it's there. Okay, let's get to writing some code now. I'm going to create a very simple example class here called clock. It's going to have one method right now called sayCurrentTime. It's just going to console.writeLine datetime.now. Very simple. And then in the main, I'm going to new up that class and call sayCurrentTime on it. If I run this in a console, you can see that it's just going to dump the date and time to the console. No big deal. Now we're going to write an aspect. And what an aspect is a collection of behaviors that are going to go around a method. This method is going to inherit from a Postsharp class called onMethodBoundaryAspect, which can be found in the postsharp.aspects namespace. Now inside of this class we can override various behaviors. For instance, we can do onEntry, which will run before the main body of the method. Another example is onException, which will run if there is an exception inside the body of the method. Next we have onExit, which will run after the method executes, always. And finally we have onSuccess, which runs after the method executes, only if there was no exception. We also have to mark this class as serializable so that the Postsharp post compiler can process it correctly. So now we have this aspect which describes some behaviors to go around a method. How do we apply it to the method? It's very simple. You just take that class and apply it to the method as an attribute, like so. So example aspect goes right there over your method. Now if I run the console app, you'll see that those console.writeLines that I put as behaviors will run where you'd expect them to. So before and after the main method body. So let's make these a little more interesting here. Let's use string.format to create a message. Entering, let's do 0 and 1. And for the first one, I'm going to use this args argument up here that's passed into onEntry and all these other ones, in fact, to get some information about the context that we're in. So if we say args.instance, this is going to be the object that the method is in right now. So if we say instance.getType.name, that'll be the name of the class. Next we say args.method, and this gives us some information about the method that we're on. So I can say method.name. So what we'd expect to print out here is entering clock, : sayCurrentTime. We can copy and paste this to do something similar to these other behaviors. So there was an exception in, exiting successfully. And now let's hit Control F5, and we should have some more information about the context that our aspect's being applied to. So clock, : say current time. So you can start to see that if we combine this with some sort of logging library, we can start to create some logging behavior that we can reuse across our class on any method that we write. So for instance, if I added a new method here called say if this is a leap year, console.writeLine, is this a leap year, datetime.is leap year, datetime.now.year, and I'll call it up here in main, say if this is a leap year, and I'll just copy and paste this attribute here to apply it to both methods. And I'll actually add some more formatting here to make this look a little nicer with the dash there. But you can see I'm using the same exact logging behavior here, this console.writeLine behavior, using it in two places here on both methods. So if I hit Control F5, you can see that it's adding that behavior to each of those method calls. Now what if we took this aspect and applied it to the class instead? What would you expect to happen? Well, if you guessed that it would be applied to all the methods inside the class, you would be correct. But don't forget there's a default constructor in there as well, and that's going to be applied to it as well. So now, if you want to put this logging aspect on every member of your class, you just add that attribute to the class. That's it for the basic intro. In future Dimecasts, I'd like to show you some other aspects. Besides on method boundary aspect, there are some others. I'd also like to take you through some of the details of how Postsharp works. After that, I'd like to show you some of the more advanced features of aspects. So we just went through some very simple behaviors here of on method boundary aspect, but there are lots of other features that you can use as well. I'd like to take you through some real-world examples using Postsharp and AOP in your real projects. And finally, I'd like to take you through some other AOP frameworks besides Postsharp. Postsharp certainly is the leading AOP framework for .NET out there, but there are many others and that might be more appropriate for your project. Thank you for watching.